Hello, welcome to Books at the Bottom of the Stairs. My name's Lorraine. I foolishly forgot to include Olive's actual live feed in the information in the last video. So I'm going to do it again, this video, and go back and correct the original one and add that information in. So Olive was the booktuber who is doing the nonfiction November read along, and I just forgot to do that piece. I was lying awake at about 2 o'clock in the morning last night going, oh my God, I never did that. So apologies for that. And I will say also that Olive has put up a video, I guess just 2, maybe 3 days ago, that has to do with recommendations. And I haven't watched that one yet, but she's got a stack of books, you know, there's probably about 10, 12 books there that she's looking to recommend. So if you're interested in this, that's really a great place to take a visit. I have 3 books that I'd like to talk to you about, and 2 of them are very interesting, contrast and compare. I don't know how I'm going to do that because I'm doing it off the top of my head. But this third one, The Greymist Fair, by Francesca Zappia. There you go. Zappia is a really intriguing book. I'm reading it for my young adults book club, and it took me a while to get into it. I don't know why. It was just taking a while for me to figure out what was the intention of the book. And we have got, let me see, I'm just quickly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different sections in the book. And they are more or less all around the same event, I guess. Like it's not an event that takes place in a 24-hour period. It's an event that's taking place. Well, let's just say a season. It's not really a season, but like, you know, a season of things that are all related to each other. And we have several main characters. Each section is from a different person's point of view. They're not necessarily the main character, but so that's a very confused explanation, isn't it? But one cold day, Greymist Fair's young tailor, Heike, sets out on the road in search of the red berries she needs to dye her fabrics. But what she finds will lead her to the heart of the forest and the darkness that dwells there. The village is located along a road, and if you stay on the road, you're okay. If you go into the forest and you have any kind of fear happening in you, then you will not survive. And so this village has got normal death happening around it, but there seems to be an increase in the number of children that go missing. And if you don't come back, you've been turned into what's called a warg, W-A-R-G. I kind of get the feeling that some kind of cross between a dog and a bear, and yeah, it's sort of that sort of preying kind of animal. And what has been happening in the woods is that is where death, like the entity death, is living, has a little cottage there. And so there is a witch that works towards keeping death from invading the village and just wiping everybody out. He's very upset about something. And in each section, because we're getting these different kinds of points of view that lead up to the single event, we eventually come to know just what is death's problem, and is there going to be a solution? I'm not sure. That was kind of a bit of a cliffhanger at the end. I found this book to be a little bit hard to get into at first because I think I read about 2.5 sections. I'm thinking, why are we in this book? Why is this story being told this way? Because each section was unresolved and didn't necessarily seem to link to the next section. You know, I thought maybe after I thought maybe one would follow upon the other, but they quite often start in different points in history or different geographic locations. But eventually, as we get to know the situations and the characters, we start to pull it all together, and there is a purpose to the book. There is a purpose to the characters, and by the end of it, I was quite fascinated. I did enjoy it, but I think if I'd been not having to read this for a book club, I might have given up on it. But I've heard that her other books are quite good, and she's also well known for Eliza and Her Monsters. So I think actually I am going to pursue Francesca Zappia to see what her other things are like. This is fantasy for young adult, and it's well enough written. I mean, it really is very well written, so that the reading and the descriptions and the characters and that part was all, you know, really enjoyable. But it is just because it was a tiny bit of a mystery as to where and why that I was struggling a little bit. But yeah, I definitely recommend this one. And it'll be interesting to see what my book club is going to say about it, because they've had a change of heart. We've been together for at least 7 or 8 years, I think. And an email came through, and two people had been chatting and said, you know, kind of tired of reading young adult, which is what this book club has exclusively been reading all these years, and just feeling that the books that we've been reading are all kind of the same. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that young adult choices right now on the bookshelves for sale are definitely samey. They've got, this genre tends to fall into the trap of having a checklist for marketing purposes. And you can get a really good author trapped into writing what, you know, the marketing department wants. And so sometimes the author lets the reader down because they haven't really held true to their vision of what they like to write about. And you get other times where, I mean, it happens in this book a little bit too, where there are a couple of couples of same-sex marriages, but it's just lightly thrown in there. It's not something that's deeply explored, but there's no purpose to it, if that makes sense. So on the one hand, great, you know, let's everybody just be everyone and not worry about the differences and that sort of thing. Let's just be rolling along like that is totally okay, which it is totally okay. But we've got this thing happening in literature where there's a distinct, I don't know how to explain it without getting into a lot of trouble, but if you make a same-sex marriage or a trans person the main focus or a secondary character in a book right now, it's like they're other. They're still other. There's still something that needs to be understood, or you need to learn about, or something. It's not just a natural, everyday common occurrence. Like, you know, we don't write books about bald people and think, oh, you know, like we really have to understand the bald people. No, we need to just accept that there are those of us who have hair and those that don't. And I think the same kind of approach needs to be, you know, just a general throw it out. We are all here. We all have experiences. Let's get to, you know, the heart of the matter. So young adult literature has a tendency to latch onto whatever is the latest kind of top 10 hits of what young adults are interested in. So like a decade ago, it was all about mental health and eating disorders and transitioning away from home and having sex and being independent, you know, like making choices without your parents and the trauma of having to make your own choices, or shopping, or, you know, like some of them were silly. And that got, what made them so silly was you could get a character that not only had a mental health problem, but was missing a leg, and her daughter, I mean, her sister maybe was dead, and her parents were divorced, and the dog got lost, you know, all in the first chapter. And It's just like, oh my God, it's crazy. There's no way that that many teenagers have that many problems like that. And so I think for a long time it wasn't an honest exploration as to what teen lives were all about. So there's this thing that's currently happening, which is that we have to have all these conditions in the stories that are could be quite interesting if we just didn't do it as a gotta have it, if that makes sense. I don't know. I don't explain it very well, and I get myself into trouble on this one quite often, but I just think some of the not every pirate needs to have a wooden leg. I guess that's what I'm saying. Does that make sense? Okay, the next two books are so opposite, and they are, one is for a book club, and the other one was one that was recommended to me by this young adult book club. And the recommended one is Door in the Dark by Scott Reintgen. And it is fantasy, young adult. And I betcha it's book one in a series, because there is a serious cliffhanger at the end. It could end there if the author, had the courage to leave it there, but I think we're being, prepared for book two and probably book three. What have we got here is a group of 6 teenagers who are in a magical university, and they have got sort of like a subway stop that you go to in order to get to your various homes or bookstores or whatever it is. It's just you get on the thing and trot, you go where you're going to go. So these 6 are in an argument in the station where this is going to happen. And somehow, as they're being, let's just say teleported, something goes wrong. And one of the people, when they land in the middle of nowhere, one of them is dead. And what's happened is that you're not supposed to do any kind of magic while you're teleporting. So it's become amplified, and so the people have not gone to their proper destinations. They've ended up way in the back of Beyond, and there are significant problems. None of them have any survival skills. Nobody's really got any. Somebody's there in a party dress, and they've got to go through the mountains, up through the snow and so forth. And they're encountering all kinds of magical dilemmas, beings, survival issues like water, heat, and they've got a system there where the magic is sort of, you kind of buy tokens if you like. So you have so many tokens of magic, and this fuel is, once it runs out, you can't perform magical things. You are still a magical person, but you need the fuel in order to enact your magic. I find it a little bit odd, but anyways, it works. The world that this author, Scott Reintgen, has created is logical and it's consistent. So as the 6 that become 5 travel towards home, things start to happen, and seemingly there are accidents, but perhaps there's something else going on. Are they being hunted? Are they being picked off a little bit? So there begins to be a mystery around things, and they're on the run from something, but they don't know what. And the tension builds, and eventually some of them make it home. I can't give away any more than that, but we have it in terms of plot line. We have a very, very strong main character, and her name is Ren Monroe, and she is probably one of the best students that has come out of the university, but she comes from a poor background. So she's finding it quite difficult to get employment after university, and is trying to figure out a way to make herself noticed by the people that do the hiring. So she's come up with a scheme is it working or isn't it working? As the reader, we're not really sure where she is. We don't have the full outline of her plan. We know she's got a plan, and we're not entirely sure how the dilemma out in the wilds connects with her plan. There seems to be a link, but we're not in on it. So the author, the main protagonist, the voice is Ren's. She is very reliable, but is she reliable? It's that kind of dilemma as you're going along. You're just thinking, can I trust this voice? And we do get some of the other people's points of view, but through Ren's eyes. And so there's a lot of emotion in there. There's a lot of tension. There's a lot of thinking. There's a lot of, how do you say, like, it's a bit cerebral from time to time. I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. I came to the end and I had quite a reaction. And unfortunately, I can't share it because it would be such a giveaway. So I think this is one that I'm going to keep my eyes peeled for to see when book 2, I suspect book 2 comes through. Now, Scott Reintgen is also known for the Ash Lord's Duology and the Nyxia Triad for young adults, and the Celia Cleary series for middle grade readers. So again, I think this is an author that the writing is excellent, the pacing is great, the characters are very well drawn. There's a good use of language in this, and the world that he's created that, as I say, is kind of a peculiar idea about magic in the sense that it's different than a lot of others. So it's very well drawn, it's very believable, and unlike some other magical books that I've read where there's just some definite inconsistencies or technological blips, this doesn't have any of them. So I do recommend that as well. And then the complete opposite, oh my goodness, is The Blue Castle by Lucy Maud Montgomery. And this is also a book club book for the Reading Across Canada Book Club with Jolene from A Bookworm Adventure Girl. And we are reading this for the month of October. And I think we had 3 classics that we were Canadian classics that we were to choose between, and this one came up. And I had a feeling I had read it before because there was a period where I really went beyond the 3 Anne of Green Gables series and just, explored an awful lot. But I wasn't positive, it was like that thing where you think, I have a feeling. And as I was, what I love about this particular book, and I'll explain the book in a second, is that this particular story has stayed with me for years and years and years. There's things that happen in this story that are very unlike Lucy Maud Montgomery's other books, and it's very witty. And I've laughed out loud a couple of times. I've found that the sense of humor of the main character is she's really a hoot when she lets go. So the main character is Valencia Sterling, and she is so oppressed by her family. She's an old maid at the age of 29. She's done. There's no more life for her. Her birthday comes when she turns 29, and nobody pays any attention to it. It's also the same day that an aunt and uncle have their wedding anniversary, so that's the focus of the family, not poor old Valencia. And she goes to the doctor because she's having some chest pains and stuff, and she doesn't go to the family doctor. She goes to a different one. And she gets some information that leads her to believe that life is basically nearly over. She's received some very traumatic news, and she decides to just let rip. She is going to live her life for the best for the next foreseeable future. And when she lets go, oh my goodness, it's so amusing. This would make such a wonderful, sweet movie if you could just get the right kind of the family characters. They'd have to be people that are just so obviously themselves right to begin with. You've got Uncle James, who's just a pompous dork, and the mother, who's just this whining brat, and cousins who are at the mercy of the family members who have money, and they're the have-nots. And so there's all this obsequious kowtowing going on, and the women, they all think themselves quite fine. The Sterling family is quite fine. Of course, leave the community and no one knows who the Sterlings are, but they never think about that. So good old Valencia makes several decisions that they are just horrified by, and they're thinking, we need to put her in the madhouse. She's determined to just proceed. We go along towards the end of the story, and something happens that flips everything upside down. And I'm just on the last 10 or so pages. I should have finished this before I did the video, but I wanted to, there's a timing issue. So for both of us, for you and for me, I don't entirely know the ending yet. I think it's a bit of a cliffhanger too, isn't it? But talk about a different character. She's so deeply bowed down to the wishes of her mother and her cousin, and she's like a bed with no springs. There's just no bouncing back. She's such a dreary life that she leads. And like, for example, I think this is a great example. In her bedroom, she doesn't really have anything from a childhood doll or her own childhood books or anything like that. What she has in her room to decorate it are all the photographs of the family members who've died, but nobody wants to keep the photos of. So she's got all the dead relatives' photos in there. And then on her dresser is the potpourri bouquet from her mother's wedding bouquet. Wedding bouquet was turned into potpourri and put into a dish, and it just smells like dead ground. That's what they're scenting her room with. Oh my goodness. You can just vision it, right? Like, you just imagine all these awful photographs in black and white. They're probably not even in silver frames to give it a bit of sparkle. So Lucy Maud, of course, does a tremendously good job of writing scenes, writing nature, writing characters. Her dialogue is really spiffing, and I think this is a great book. And as I say, of the books that I have read with Lucy Maud Montgomery's, the first and this one are my two favorites. This is really very much a favorite, and you'll probably see it again when I do books that don't crush your soul, when I do that again in the winter, because that's going on that list for sure. That's it for me, and I will remember to put down Olive's information below. That's it for me. I hope all your reading dreams and adventures to continue to come true, and I will see you next week with something I don't know what. Bye-bye for now.